Welcome to The Explainer. We're about to unpack one of the absolute most consequential and honestly fascinating standoffs in modern tech history. We're looking at a massive, high-stakes clash between a rising titan of the tech industry, Anthropic, and the United States military. I mean, what actually happens when rigid corporate safety principles collide head-on with the urgent demands of national security? It's a story packed with staggering sums of money, groundbreaking artificial intelligence, and truly unprecedented geopolitical consequences. I'm incredibly excited to guide you through this, so let's get right into it. Okay, let's look at our roadmap for this explainer. First, the $2 trillion AI. Second, Claude mythos. Third, the long-term benefit trust. Fourth, the military AI conflict. And finally, number 5, fallout and future implications. Chapter 1, the $2 trillion AI. $2 trillion. I want you to just wrap your head around that number for a second. As Anthropic was ramping up its works for an initial public offering, prospective investors and bankers started crunching the valuation frameworks based on future revenue forecasts. And some of those investors, they reportedly believed the company could command an IPO valuation of $2 trillion or more. The reason I want to flash this staggering number right out of the gate is to really ground us in exactly why this company's internal policies matter on a global scale. Because when a company hits this kind of size, its internal rules effectively become global policy. Now, check out the sheer speed of growth here. A valuation of that size doesn't just come out of thin air, right? It's based entirely on this unbelievable momentum. At the end of 2025, Anthropic had an annual revenue run rate of roughly $9 billion. Fast forward just a few months to May of 2026, it hits $47 billion. And by the end of July 2026, over $65 billion. So the market is effectively placing a massive bet that Anthropic can sustain this breakneck speed to justify today's enormous headline numbers. So how exactly did they pull this off? Well, Anthropic was founded in 2021 by former OpenAI researchers, and they became an elite player practically overnight, securing some massive backing from titans like Amazon, Alphabet, NVIDIA, and Microsoft. The real game changer, though, was their specific focus on enterprise AI and coding tools. Their product, Claude Code, became this massive growth engine simply because businesses could directly measure massive productivity gains from faster software development. This incredible enterprise momentum is exactly why they're projecting revenues of $190 billion to $200 billion by 2028. Chapter 2, Claude Mythos and Rapid Growth. This perfectly illustrates how they actually manage their most powerful technology. Back in June 2026, Anthropic released 2 versions of their cutting-edge model. On one side, we have Claude Fable 5. This one's available for general public use, and it is heavily guarded with very strict safeguards. But on the other side, we have Claude Mythos 5, the most powerful series of models in the Claude family. This is a restricted access version where those strict safeguards are actually lifted in certain areas, which they've previously used in projects like scanning for security vulnerabilities in critical software. Now, for the consumer side, using Fable 5, the technical architecture they use to enforce safety is honestly fascinating. It's like a built-in tripwire. The 2 models are fundamentally identical, but if a user prompts Fable 5 with a request that triggers classifiers for cybersecurity, biology, chemistry, or model distillation, the system intervenes automatically. It actually downgrades the response, handing the prompt straight over to the less capable, older Claude Opus model. It's an incredibly clever way to physically hardwire safety boundaries right into a commercial product. Chapter 3, the long-term benefit trust. You might be wondering, why is Anthropic so focused on these strict boundaries? Well, it actually comes down to their DNA. Anthropic is a public benefit corporation, or PBC. This is a specific legal structure in Delaware that allows the company's board to legally balance the financial interests of their stockholders with a specific public benefit mission. For Anthropic, that mission, which is legally baked right into their charter, is to responsibly develop and maintain advanced AI for the long-term benefit of humanity. So they aren't just choosing to balance profit with safety, they're legally bound to do it. A really key part of that safety mission is a methodology known as constitutional AI. Basically, this is a method for training AI models to be harmless by having them follow a predefined set of rules or principles, like a constitution, which minimizes the reliance on human feedback. Now, it's worth noting that this specific methodology became a massive focal point of criticism from certain political figures. They reviewed the safety constraints and labeled it woke AI, which obviously led to a much broader cultural and political debate over the company's guardrails. Let's look at how they lock these principles in with their ultimate governance lever, the long-term benefit trust. To make sure their mission actually survives, Anthropic created a special class of shares, Class T common stock. and placed it into a trust controlled by 5 independent AI and ethics experts. Here's how it works. These voting trustees initially elect one of the company's 5 directors. But over time, or upon hitting certain fundraising milestones, they gain the power to elect 2 and eventually a majority of 3 directors. Think about that. A panel of outside experts is legally designed to slowly take total control of the boardroom to safeguard how the AI is developed. Chapter 4: The Military AI Conflict. This sets up the real climax of the story. What happens when these rigid, legally binding corporate safety principles meet the massive, unyielding demands of the U.S. military? Well, things escalated incredibly fast. In December 2025, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth announced GenAI.mil, a military AI platform. Tensions flared in early 2026 because Anthropic opposed its products being used for mass domestic surveillance or lethal autonomous weapons. By February, reports dropped that Claude was used in the U.S. intervention in Venezuela. Anthropic tried to reassess the partnership, and in response, the Department of Defense threatened to cancel their contracts. In March, a federal judge granted an injunction against the DoD's attempts to punish Anthropic. But then, by April, the D.C. Circuit Court denied Anthropic's emergency stay, keeping the government's vendor restrictions fully in effect. The government's stance throughout this was absolutely uncompromising. Emil Michael, the Undersecretary of Defense for Research and Engineering, quite literally urged Anthropic to cross the Rubicon. The Department of Defense's position was that commercial AI systems needed to be widely accessible across military networks, and more importantly, that the DoD should be the one dictating the terms of AI usage for all lawful purposes, completely free from the restrictive safety policies of a commercial vendor. But when the Department of Defense moved to officially label Anthropic a supply chain risk in order to force military contractors to cut ties, they hit a major legal roadblock. Judge Rita Eflin granted a preliminary injunction, and she didn't mince words. She contrasted the military's demand by calling the government's actions punitive, writing that punishing Anthropic for bringing public scrutiny to the government's contracting position was classic illegal First Amendment retaliation. It just highlights the intense, high-stakes legal friction over who ultimately gets to control commercial AI in the public sector. And the real-world stakes of this debate? They're unimaginably high. In March 2026, the Minob school strike in Iran resulted in 156 casualties. The fallout was severe, with organizations like Human Rights Watch demanding a full war crime investigation. A few months later, in June 2026, Anthropic CEO Dario Amodei did an interview addressing the swirling reports about Claude's potential role in military targeting systems. He stated that the company actually did not know if Claude was used in connection with the strike, but he went on to clarify that if it had been used, the use case would not have violated Anthropic's established red lines. Chapter 5: Fallout and Future Implications. So what's the immediate aftermath of this historic, multi-layered standoff between a tech giant and the federal government? Following the D.C. Circuit Court's April 2026 decision that denied Anthropic's stay, the direct operational result kicked in immediately. The Department of War, formerly the Department of Defense, proceeded with the contract cancellations. Anthropic could no longer be used as a prime contractor or subcontractor on covered systems. The military initiated a strict 180-day timeline to completely scrub Claude from all military systems. The separation was absolute. The ripple effects hit Wall Street and Silicon Valley almost instantly. Because of this massive dispute, 1789 Capital entirely abandoned an investment in Anthropic that was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But even more crucially, competitors stepped right into the void. Following the government's actions, rival OpenAI rushed in to secure a military deal, and notably, this deal lacked the specific constraints that Anthropic had just fought so hard for. And in a wild twist of timing, that OpenAI deal was finalized literally hours before the 2026 Iran war kicked off, drastically and permanently altering the AI defense landscape. Which brings us to the ultimate question we all need to be pondering right now. As artificial intelligence becomes the ultimate weapon, how can democracies successfully balance commercial safety frameworks with the urgent demands of national security? We have literally just watched what happens when a $2 trillion tech titan draws a line in the sand against the military. The implications of this dispute, they're going to shape the future of AI, modern warfare, and corporate governance for decades to come. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. And remember, always keep questioning what you learn.